Let's do a little quick recap of Valkyria Chronicles just briefly. I won't talk at length about this game because honestly it's a game that came out a long time ago and the kind of review, if you like, doesn't need to be too long. But we just finished Valkyria Chronicles. I felt overwhelmingly this was a nice, cozy, fun game to play, but it had problems at times. I'm going to get into that in a minute. That's been a lot of my reviews recently, but let's just go on as quickly as I can. It was bad, but anyways, we played on the PC version, and on my Windows 7 Gencast PC it ran beautifully, no problems, not one crash, everything just ran flawless. The gameplay was actually really fun, and towards the end of the game it got really challenging, but it was really satisfying for the most part. I'd say like 70%, 75% of this game I'm enjoying it, and then the other 25% sometimes, oh, this game really, dude, it just took its hand and it just smashed you right in the dish, and you can't do anything about it. So it's got a pleasant story, it's got beautiful music, the characters are pretty chill. Some of you guys in the chat didn't like the story, but I thought the story was fine. You know, it's got a couple of disbelief moments where, you know, let's talk about Faldio at the end, where he gives his life kind of, I don't know, did he have to actually die at the end when he pulls the king down the hole, or the enemy leader down the hole? Eek. I like the animated cutscenes in this game for how old it is. There was a couple of scenes with Silvaria, I think her name is, that were really sick. I was kind of sad about her character as well, and what happened to her as well, but regardless, in the beginning of the game I felt like the snipers were really terrible. The snipers got really good at the end, so that was pretty cool. I love the choice given to players where you can, you know, choose to go all in on scouts, all in on lancers, all in on engineers for whatever goddamn reason. I like that you can pick and choose. I like that there's a skirmish feature for building XP and money as well if you really want to try hard and give yourself the best possible advantage. As this game got towards the later stages, I felt like the XP given to you from the skirmishes and the money given to you from the skirmishes was so much more valuable, because this game does genuinely get really difficult towards the end. Maybe difficult's the wrong word, but it gets slow and it gets very punishing. There's something that I really need to stress when playing this game that a lot of players will feel unless there's some 400 IQ strategic tactical gods. This game, especially towards the middle of the game and beyond in some of the later levels, there are fucking times where the level will throw a curveball at you. Enemy reinforcements will appear, an enemy lancer will fucking spawn on the side of the map, an enemy Valkyrie or whatever will spawn in the level, and it will just decimate you. Now, because of how the game works, when you lose, you go back to the beginning of the level. It's complete game over. So if you've invested like an hour and a half in a level, if you invest an hour or an hour and a half in a level and then you lose to some BS, let's say you are in a position to move your lancers up to get the last kill on the tank. Oh, you got some backstory here. That's pretty cool. You guys will catch that if you're interested. If you move your lancer up to get a shot in the tank, last minute shot, and they miss, it's frustrating. Now, I know you could argue, well, that's the RNG of the game, Jack. Sometimes the enemy miss, sometimes you miss. That's true, but it feels really punishing to the player sometimes, and if it's in a really critical moment, it can just wipe an hour or two of progress, and that feels really bad. I actually didn't realise you could save this game halfway through a level until the second last chapter when somebody in the chat told me. So it can feel really punishing sometimes to the player, and it's undodgeable. If you haven't seen the level before and you don't know where the enemy reinforcements come from, you will just lose if you are positioned poorly. I had one of the missions in the desert where the reinforcements appeared and they spawned the lancer in with a tank, and because my tank was just facing the wrong direction on the turn that they spawned in, they just shot the back of my tank and killed it, and that was game over. That feels really punishing. So be warned, the game is fun to play, but there will be times where you curl your toes in anger. There will be times where your lancer will have a clean shot and miss 4 times in a row. We had it in the final boss. I had Largo, Big Largo, the king. He had 2 opportunities to win us the level. Literally calculated damage to win us the level, and he missed. Again, that you could argue that's part of the fun of the game, but it can get frustrating at times. Be warned about that shit. Same with the snipers, but again, the snipers late game got really strong, I felt. They went from being really terrible in the beginning to being really useful towards the end game, so that was nice to see. My favourite class was the scouts. I just loved the mobility and valued that highly, but some of the shock troopers were pretty good as well. I felt like there are times in this game where you're trying to move your characters around and you get punished by invisible walls or something. Like if you're trying to move a scout between a lamppost and a tree and there's a wall there you can't go through, you aim your gun and you try and shoot through a gap between a tank and a building, and there's an invisible wall, so your guy will just shoot the invisible wall and completely waste the turn. That feels really frustrating at times. Is it just going to put me back to here? Alright, brilliant. Okay, so to kind of wrap up, this is a nice chill game. It's got decent strategy elements to it, and the game is challenging, so you will have to try really hard to get through some of the last levels. They're slow, not necessarily difficult, just they take time, and if you mess up once, you will get punished and you will get sent back to the start. A lot of the time you do have to figure out the challenges of the level just simply by dying. Figuring out that there's a tank in that corner, figuring out that the enemies respawn here, figuring out that, you know, you can't shoot this particular tank in the back with a certain machine gun or something. But I did find that I really liked the kind of setting of this game. It's fairly cheap at the moment, so if anybody's looking for a kind of fairly relaxing single player game, it's actually quite good, and I would recommend it to people. Just be warned that it can get frustrating. At least it was for me. Some people might relax, but you get a decent amount of content out of this game as well. It took us 40 hours to beat the main story. The game is long, there's 18 chapters, and some chapters have more than one level, so that's pretty good. If you're looking for something to completely engross you for a while, it's actually quite a nice game to play. Just be warned, it can be troublesome at times, but Valkyria Chronicles, pretty good. Just be careful. Make yourself a cup of tea if you're getting too stressed. If you're getting to the very end of chapter 17 and you're right at the end of the level for the first time, and then, you know, Largo happens to miss an RPG at the last second, which causes you to lose and die, it's gonna happen. But other than that, yeah, good times.